Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says that he will ask Congress now to overturn this travel ban. Yesterday, Senator Schumer stood next to refugees from Iraq and Syria during a very emotional news conference.
This executive order was mean-spirited and un-American. It was implemented in a way that created chaos and confusion across the country.
You saw the senator move to tears as he spoke there. Meanwhile, Democrats, not the only ones in Congress who disapprove. Republican lawmakers are now speaking out against this travel ban as well. And CBS News congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes joins me now from Capitol Hill. And Nancy, again, looking at the responses then from both sides of the aisle, beginning with the GOP, what are Republican lawmakers saying about this ban?
Well, you've got a growing number of Republican lawmakers, about 24 at this point, Josh, who have come out either in opposition to the ban or to express serious concerns about it. And some of these members are not mincing words. They are describing it as not lawful, confusing, too broad. Many of them were particularly concerned that legal residents were being caught up in this ban, all the confusion over that. They said that it wasn't implemented properly. Some said that this was a vetting process that wasn't vetted itself. It's fairly unusual to see this many Republicans breaking with the White House. But as those pictures from various airports around the country kept flowing onto TV screens all throughout the weekend, and those protests grew, and the concerns grew that 5-year-old children or doctors were getting stopped and turned away. That really made a lot of Republicans sort of sit up and take notice and push back and say, look, while we may broadly agree with the aims of the White House here to make sure that people who might do the U.S. harm don't get into this country, there's a better way to go about it. And that better way, they argued, might involve consulting with Congress to figure out the best way to impose new vetting procedures that don't look to the rest of the world like a ban on Muslims.
And Senator John McCain, as well as Senator Lindsey Graham, really looked at fundamental issues with the ban when they issued that joint statement of theirs. And interestingly, we saw the president actually shoot back, saying on Twitter, and I quote, that these two are always looking to start World War III, end quote. What's the impact then of what could really be now an intra-party fight between this wing of the GOP and the president?
Well, the problem is that once you've got Republicans unafraid to challenge the White House on issues like this and others, then a lot of frustration that's been brewing under the surface with Republicans is going to break out in the open. This is frustration they haven't wanted to express publicly in many cases because there are other things that the administration is doing that they really like, things they want to work on with this administration, rolling back Obamacare, cutting taxes. Republicans have been waiting for 8 years for a Republican president so they could do some of these things. So they've tried to be very careful. But there's going to be a certain point that's a breaking point for some of these Republicans who, after all, represent both Democrats and Republicans in their districts in some cases. And they hear messages from their constituents that are troubling. It also creates sort of challenging situations for Republican leadership, Josh. You had the Speaker of the House, for example, coming out in support of this measure on Friday, and then over the weekend putting out guidance from his office saying this is not a Muslim ban. But as the furor grew, his aides were telling us, well, this was never run by us. We had nothing to do with it. So, trying to embrace the president on one hand and be on his side, trying to create some distance on the other hand.
The tightest of ropes here, Nancy. Very quickly, Democrats came out forcefully, collectively, over the weekend against this ban. But legislatively, what's the recourse?
There is no recourse, and that's why you saw them all picking up bullhorns and heading to airports, because they didn't have many other options. They are going to try to continue to make this a visible fight. They've got a big protest that they're going to be doing on the steps of the Supreme Court later today. They realize that public outcry, public opinion is their best recourse, and so that's the path they're going to take for the time being. And there's also an opportunity on the Senate floor for them to make their concerns known, because we've got the debate over Rex Tillerson, for Secretary of State taking place on the Senate floor over the next 2 days. So Democrats are going to be using that debate to make their feelings known on this issue.
Nancy Cordes on the Hill, as always, we do appreciate it.
You're welcome.